Tonight on Reporting Scotland. The new leadership team at NHS Tayside starts work, with the Health Secretary insisting they must restore public confidence. First bus drivers in Aberdeen reject a new pay deal, and a definite all-out strike will begin on Wednesday. Calls for more money to tackle potholes despite millions of pounds of extra cash from the government. We hear of the danger to some road users.
I was on a relaxing bike ride and a moment of inattention left me 6 weeks in a fair amount of pain.
Also in the programme, another silver and bronze medal takes Team Scotland's Commonwealth Games tally to 25.
And I will press 500 times.
It's hoped a video showing people how to do CPR to a Proclaimers hit will save hundreds of lives. Good evening. The new Chief Executive of NHS Tayside says after a challenging few days there is a real willingness to move forward. Malcolm Wright was appointed by the Scottish Government to get the troubled Health Board back on track. The Health Secretary stepped in last week to demand changes amidst a series of financial problems. Lisa Summers reports.
The heat is on as the new leadership team gets round the table this afternoon. Questions needing urgent answers. How to fix the financial crisis the Health Board is in. Last week, the government dramatically intervened, putting special measures in place. And this is the man that's been put in charge of turning the troubles around. Malcolm Wright, brought in from NHS Grampian as the acting chief executive.
NHS Tayside and indeed the NHS in Scotland is absolutely committed first and foremost to patient safety, high quality, safe and effective care. That's certainly my number one priority. And then, following on from that, about how we engage with staff, how we engage with patients, how we engage with the local population. And we've got some tremendous assets to build on here, and that's what I want to do.
The problems with NHS Tayside are long-standing, and getting the Health Board back on track is not going to be a quick fix.
It's been relying on government loans for 5 years and still needs to make millions of pounds of savings. And all the while, operating costs are going up.
And there have been many warnings about the lack of long-term financial planning and of further problems to come. But it took a row over the use of charity endowment funds to force the government's hand. Some say the Health Secretary did not intervene quickly enough.
Clearly here in NHS Tayside, despite all of the support we've given them, they were unable to make the organisational changes that they needed to make. That's why we came to the conclusion, and I came to the conclusion, that new leadership was required.
The new Chief Executive is clear about what needs to be done.
There's a number of priorities. Cost of medications, I think, is one. Configuration of some of the buildings that we've got or another. I think there's a range of things like that. But the important thing is that we work with our staff, we work with the local community, and we get realistic and achievable plans that we're all signed up to delivering on, and we will move this healthcare system forward.
It's not without irony that the new team in charge met here for the first time. They need to work swiftly on a plan to mend this cash-strapped Health Board. Lisa Summers, Reporting Scotland, Ninewells Hospital, Dundee.
The daughter and sister of a woman who died at her home in Troon have gone on trial accused of her murder. 40-year-old Lynette Greenup and Shayla Greenup, who's 20, are also accused of claiming Sharon Greenup's benefits after she died. Andrew Black reports from the High Court in Glasgow.
Shayla Greenup, who's 20, is said to have assaulted and murdered her 46-year-old mother at a house in Troon in 2016. 40-year-old Lynette Greenup, who's Sharon's sister, is also accused of her murder at the property on Alderside Avenue. It's said the pair burned scented candles to hide the smell of Sharon's decomposing body and took other measures to cover up the alleged crime, including pretending to police and others that she was still alive. The two women are also accused of fraudulently claiming Sharon's state benefits after her death, which amounted to £386.88 per week. Judge Lady Carmichael adjourned the trial until tomorrow morning, when it's due to hear from its first witness. Both the accused in this case deny all the charges against them. Andrew Black, Reporting Scotland, at the High Court in Glasgow.
First bus drivers in Aberdeen have rejected a new pay deal, meaning an indefinite all-out strike will begin on Wednesday. The action was suspended last week after a new deal was put on the table following talks involving the conciliation service ACAS. But our reporter Rebecca Curran is in Aberdeen for us tonight. Rebecca, was this result expected?
Well, the Unite Union had said last week that the company had made a significant enough shift in their position to justify putting the new offer to drivers. In the last hour, the results of that ballot were revealed, and 58% of drivers who took part rejected the deal. Now, these drivers have taken part in walkouts over the past couple of weeks, but it does look like what will be the first indefinite strike action in First Aberdeen's history will go ahead on Wednesday. Now, both parties had taken part in talks with ACAS last week. Both had made compromises, but at the end of the day, it was up to the drivers to vote, and for them, it's not a done deal.
It certainly was an improved offer, but obviously with the decision today, that offer hasn't been improved sufficiently in the minds of the drivers. We are a member-led union, and we obviously have to listen to their message.
To see this voted down via ballot is very concerning indeed. The company will now need to take some time to digest this result and to weigh up the next steps, as the costs to the business and falling revenues we are currently enduring simply cannot be sustained.
So this is obviously not good news for passengers. Services will be affected across the network, and businesses in the city centre are concerned too about a drop in footfall and a drop in potential sales during indefinite strike action. Both sides say that they will get back round the table, but can that be done before Wednesday? And would Unite the Union be persuaded to call off or suspend the action for a second time before then? Only time will tell.
Rebecca, thank you. The First Minister has spoken of great ties of friendship and a vibrant relationship between Scotland and China at a welcome address in Beijing. Nicola Sturgeon was hosting an event in the Chinese capital to showcase Scottish produce and technology, including whisky, salmon and textile design technology used to create heart valves. She also announced new agreements in the finance, energy and computer gaming sectors. A man's been injured in an industrial accident at a building site in Aberdeen. It happened on Charleston Road in Cove this morning. The fire service reported they were responding to reports of a partial collapse of a building. House builder Stuart Milne, though, said it hadn't collapsed, but it appears something had fallen onto the man, who was a subcontractor. He was taken to hospital for treatment. Scottish ministers are weighing up options for setting up a new state-owned company that would supply household power and could invest in renewable energy. The plans have been drawn up following the First Minister's pledge last October to set up a household energy supplier. It's estimated the cost of setting up the company could be up to £3.5 million, with first-year running costs at £9 million. However, it's warned that there is already tough competition in the Scottish market. An extra £10 million of Scottish Government money to help councils repair potholes has been branded insufficient by critics. They say the money is welcome, but isn't enough to pay for all the repairs that are needed. Many councils say they've seen a rise in the number of potholes recently because of the severe winter weather. Here's our local government correspondent, Jamie McIver.
Potholes don't just damage cars, they can cause accidents and injuries. Christopher Johnson is an experienced cyclist. Recently, he ended up with a broken knuckle.
I was on a relaxing bike ride and a moment of inattention left me 6 weeks in a fair amount of pain. I was approaching the top of a hill and rode through a puddle that was masking a fairly large pothole, and the impact of hitting that ended up resulting in a broken bone in my hand, which required NHS treatment.
The winter weather's left councils across the country dealing with a spate of potholes. But there are also questions over the underlying state of some roads and whether councils have enough money. Councils decide just how much to spend on local road maintenance, and money is tight. In recent years, the value of council budgets across Scotland has fallen significantly. A recent report for the council umbrella body COSLA highlighted how this has led to tough choices. The amount spent on road maintenance is down in real terms. It's fallen by a fifth since 2010. Meanwhile, spending on education and social care has been relatively well protected. Now the Scottish Government is giving councils an extra £10 million to help them deal with potholes. Though critics say this is too little.
It's nowhere near enough. In Perth and Kinross alone, we are facing additional costs of £2.5 million due to the exceptional costs of the beast from the east in terms of winter conditions and repairs and general repairs to the roads.
Nobody from the Scottish Government was available for interview today, but ideally many councils would like to do more to stop potholes developing in the first place. This new machine's just been introduced in Arran and should allow the council there to deal with potholes more efficiently. But across Scotland, the repair bill this year is rising. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland.
Now, it has one of the shortest coastlines in the world, but the Principality of Monaco might be able to help us in Scotland with our understanding of our seas. The country's ruling monarch, Prince Albert II, has been visiting Edinburgh, where his institute has been staging a conference on balancing the economic potential of oceans with a need to protect them. The Prince has been speaking exclusively to our environment correspondent, Kevin Keane.
The Principality of Monaco on the Mediterranean coast. It might be small, but this grand harbour suggests a certain connection with the seas.
How are you?
Nice to meet you. I'm good, thank you. For the reigning monarch visiting Edinburgh today, protecting the oceans is a major goal, and he told me the pressures on them are growing daily.
The recognition that oceans have to be taken into consideration when you consider all issues concerning the environment, but climate change at the forefront of that, I think is extremely important, and because without a healthy ocean, we cannot have a good future.
They have to share the ocean with plastic.
Protecting our blue planet has been accelerated into our consciousness. Pollution from plastic is the big political concern, but the issues are wider.
Dear friends of the oceans,
led by the Prince, oceanographers from across the globe have been looking at the impacts from climate change and ocean acidification. That's where carbon emissions affect the chemical balance of our seas.
Half of the air that we breathe is produced by the oceans. And if you just want to take home that concept, I think that's reason enough for us to be concerned about the health of our oceans.
And you obviously feel personally very passionate about this as well. Where does that passion come from?
Well, it comes from family heritage, but also from my different travels where I was able to witness the different dangers that we were facing.
Protection of our own seas is already high on the agenda. The destruction by fishermen of this reef in Loch Carron last year led to an emergency closure of the water, and industry is fast moving from land to sea.
The fact that we're moving towards renewable energy from the ocean, like offshore wind, a lot of aquaculture that people see in the ocean, and so they're joining the dots and seeing that the ocean is there both as a resource, but it's also fragile, it can be damaged.
The Prince's Institute doesn't aim to stifle growth offshore, but simply to limit its environmental impact and ensure that this beautiful part of our natural world is not destroyed. Kevin Keane, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
It's almost 19 minutes to 7. A reminder now of tonight's top story. The new chief executive of NHS Tayside says there's a real willingness to move forward. The health secretary insists the new leadership team must restore public confidence in the beleaguered board. And still to come, why 2 food banks are about to open on the islands of Uist and Barra. Scotland have taken their Commonwealth Games medal tally to 25 on the 5th day of action on the Gold Coast. There's been a bronze at the gymnastics and a silver at the lawn bowls. But as Jane Lewis reports, that medal was tinged with disappointment.
Plenty of support for Scotland's lawn bowlers, a chance to perhaps witness history, and certainly a chance to enjoy the sport in the sunshine.
It would be lovely to get this weather because I wouldn't have to wear 4 or 5 layers.
Yeah, big difference. At least it's not cold here. It's still a good atmosphere here. It's good to watch the bowls as well.
It's nice just to sit and watch it and not be all wrapped up and with waterproofs on normally.
Marshall was eyeing history, going for a 5th Commonwealth gold medal, with Paul Foster looking for his 4th. Going into the final end, and Wales held the advantage. Leading 11-10, Marshall had the last bowl. Close, but not close enough.
Failed on the high side. A really good effort by Alex Marshall, but Wales have won the gold medal.
There was no successful defence of their pairs title from Glasgow 2014 for Marshall and Foster, and no adding to their Commonwealth gold medal collection.
Yeah, it wasn't the colour, but still happy with a silver medal. The competition, the teams that were involved in it. It was very hard for us to to medal over here, on the different surfaces. But yeah, as I say, we're very happy with the silver medal.
Before we came, we had a lot of confidence in both the pairs and the fours. We came to medal. As Alex says, unfortunately it's not the colour we wanted, but we've still got a silver medal, so can't be too disappointed. But we will certainly ready to go when the fours start, and we'll be looking forward to it.
In the gymnastics, Frank Baines also added to Scotland's tally. A bronze on the parallel bars, his second medal of these games.
Frank Baines, you beauty!
Really happy. Obviously the main job before we came out here was the team medal, but to get an individual medal for myself at the end, I'm really, really pleased.
And that's now 25 medals for Scotland. Jane Lewis, reporting Scotland, Gold Coast.
Well, meanwhile, Team Scotland's double gold medalist, Neil Fackie, says losing his Paralympic funding as a sprinter in athletics was the best thing to happen to him. The Aberdonian won 2 gold medals in visually impaired tandem events with his pilot. Rona McLeod met them on their first day off after competition.
They came to the Gold Coast weeks ago, but today enjoyed their first walk on the beach, made all the sweeter by the gold medals around their necks.
The form we have out here is just unbelievable, so it came together just at the right time, and yeah, to come away with these 2 gold medals and break a world record as well was just beyond our dreams, to be honest.
Gold for Scotland, gold for Neil Fackie.
A change in rules means Fackie was able to ride with a pilot from any of the home nations. 23-year-old Matt Rotherham from England was delighted to play his part in Scotland's medals.
Matt has absolutely loved being part of Team Scotland. He's been welcomed into the fray, and he was on the podium singing the national anthem.
To come into a team that's so patriotic and proud, to be part of that, and it's been really inspirational.
So let's see if your singing's as good as your piloting. Give it a bash.
Oh, Fleur of Scotland.
Despite Fackie's incredible pedigree, the multiple world champion admits sporting failure elsewhere led him to cycling success.
I went to the Beijing Games in 2008 as an athlete, 100 and 200 metre runner, and I just missed out on both finals, and at that point I lost my funding. And I knew that the London Games were just 4 years away, and I thought I had to be there. So yeah, I just decided I was going to try every single sport I could in the hope I found one that I might be just good enough to make it to the Games.
Are you able to describe what you see? How would you explain it for other people to understand?
Yeah, so my level of sight is around, well, it's less than 10% of full sight. So I have a loss of peripheral vision. I don't see much from the sides, up above or down below. My central vision is quite blurry as well, so I don't really have that definition, which is obviously fairly dangerous if you're hurtling around a velodrome at the best part of 50 miles an hour.
Fackie plans to hurtle around the velodrome for a while longer to the Tokyo Olympics in 2020. Rona McLeod, reporting Scotland, the Gold Coast.
Well, more good news now. Scotland is on the verge of boasting a world-class swimmer. That's according to a former Scottish athlete, once hailed as a national hero himself. Gregor Tate, who won gold in the pool at the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne, says Duncan Scott has what it takes to go to the very top. Scott has already won 5 medals of his own at this year's Games. Chris McLaughlin reports.
To the victor, the spoils, and of course, the anthem. When Scott hit the water in the 100 metres freestyle, he could only dream of what lay ahead. South African Chad le Clos and home favourite and Olympic champion Kyle Chalmers were expected to battle it out.
Scott on the last stroke, I think he's got it. Yes, he has got it.
It makes him the most successful Scottish athlete at an individual game. So far, he's already bagged bronze in the 4x200 metres freestyle, the 4x100 metres freestyle, the 200 metres butterfly and the 200 metres freestyle.
capped off by that glittering 100 metres freestyle gold. And he could make it more in the medley events tomorrow.
He's very close to being one of the best in the world. He's right at the top, just about to go to that next level. There are a lot of boys in the same kind of area as him, and I think as soon as he gets 47 mid, then he can definitely be there.
Back home at the pool where it all began, there's already immense pride in Scottish swimming's new poster boy, especially from those who helped from the start.
The first time I saw him swim was when he was probably 11 at Scottish Schools finals, and that was before he started at Strathallan. But from then, even at that point, you could see that he definitely had potential to reach a high level.
It's the very highest level down under. Duncan Scott, golden boy and medal machine, in a career that's just getting started. Chris McLaughlin, reporting Scotland.
Now, when we think of food banks, more often than not, we think of a need in heavily populated urban areas. But a couple of food banks are about to open on the islands of Uist and Barra. They've been set up by local groups who say recent job losses and high prices for heating have contributed to demand. Ian McInnes can tell us more.
The crofting and fishing communities of the Western Isles are in many ways a picture of self-sustainability. The sea and the land have provided for people for centuries. Later this month, though, a food bank will open in Uist.
Food banks, they often carry a stigma that it's for a particular type of people, or it's seen maybe as a city thing. But the reality is today that with things being tight financially and changes in the benefits system, that there is a need among a much wider demographic of people.
And the focus will be on fresh produce, grown in extra strong polytunnels called polycrubs, which can withstand hurricane-force winds.
As the Uist gale rages outside, the growing continues here inside the polycrub, and it's hoped a network of tunnels like this can help contribute fresh produce to the food bank.
We'll be growing what we perceive would be needed, your normal things like onions, carrots, your tomatoes, your potatoes, and hopefully that'll bring a fresh produce to the food bank with the tins and everything else that comes normally through a food bank.
How important do you think it is that people who are going to the food bank get that choice of fresh produce?
Oh, it's very important, especially where there's young families, so that the children get the nutrients that they require.
Although the agencies here know there is a demand for a food bank service, no individual was willing to come on camera to tell us about their experience of using a food bank. A sign perhaps that there is still a stigma attached to the use of such facilities, even here in the islands.
Anywhere is a desperate situation. We are in challenging days and people are struggling. We're learning through it that we need to be there for one another. Although a sad situation, I think good can come from it as well.
It's hoped the facility will open later this month. Ian McInnes, reporting Scotland in Uist.
The Proclaimers' hit 500 Miles is pretty well known across the world, but the Scottish Government is now hoping it'll be a lifesaver. That's because they're using it as a guide to do CPR. Katie Hunter explains.
And I will press 500 times. And I will press 500 more.
A catchy tune with a potentially life-saving beat. CPR can more than double the chances of survival following a cardiac arrest. Paul Burns fell ill in 2016 while playing football at Hibs training ground. The club's physiotherapist carried out CPR.
That's what saved my life effectively. Had a quick action, the quick action of the guys to give me CPR so quickly, and then I had a defibrillator which obviously helped the process, but if it hadn't been for the CPR initially I wouldn't be here today.
Make sure, hard and fast, you can't do anything wrong. It's as simple as it looks.
Simple but effective. Staff from the Scottish Ambulance Service see firsthand the difference CPR can make.
We've got a good idea. If somebody is already doing CPR when we arrive, we know that that's a fighting chance there. And it's great to get more and more people trained in CPR to help people's lives.
In 2012, the British Heart Foundation teamed up with Vinnie Jones to produce this video.
Push down 5 or 6 centimetres. That's about 2 inches in old money.
It's hoped the Scottish version will teach people of all ages the importance of chest compressions.
In case you're at like a party or something like that and someone starts choking on something, then you should probably know how to do it and help them.
And I will press 500.
This video is part of a plan to teach 500,000 people in Scotland CPR and save 1,000 lives by 2020.
Till the ambulance comes to your door.
Let's get the weather now from Kozu.
Thank you, Jackie. Good evening to you all. Well, for many, it was a lovely end to the day. Some lovely spells with sunshine breaking through from that cloud earlier, but 1 or 2 sharp showers around as well. And you can see from the recent radar and satellite where we've had those showers, but also where we've had the lovely spells of sunshine across parts of the north, northeast, and across the south of the country as well. But looking ahead for the rest of tonight, well, we have an area of low pressure to the west of us, slipping southwards. High pressure across Scandinavia, and what that will mean is that we'll have more of an easterly wind direction from tonight and for the next few days, and a real contrast in our temperatures from east to west because of this. But also we have this weather system that will bring some outbreaks of rain by the early hours and for tomorrow. But for tonight, well, those showers will tend to die away and it becomes largely dry. That cloud mainly towards the east, and with that easterly wind drawing in that cold air from the North Sea, some mist, some low cloud, some har along that east coast. Across the northwest, clearer skies here, and by the early hours we're drawing in some of that showery rain. But not a terribly cold night, temperatures dipping to around 3 to 5 Celsius. So tomorrow, more in the way of cloud around in general, especially further towards the east coast. Thick enough for some drizzle at times as well. And we'll start to see some showery rain arriving across the south, spreading up towards parts of Aberdeenshire. So if you're heading out around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll be cloudy, quite drizzly and quite breezy too across parts of the southwest. Further towards the southeast, some outbreaks of showery rain here too, and up towards the east coast. Look at the difference in our temperatures, 5 or 6 degrees further towards the east. But in the sunshine across the northwest, for the Western Isles, we could climb up to 13 Celsius. And for North Highland, for the Northern Isles, largely dry but fairly cloudy conditions here. Into the evening, still some showery rain for a time, but it does tend to become drier overnight with cloud around and still some mist further towards the east. And then for Wednesday, we'll lose any of the rain. It becomes largely dry for all, but a much cloudier day. And again, the difference in our temperatures because of that easterly wind, 5 or 6 in the east, 12 to 13 in the west. That's your forecast.
Thank you very much for that, Kozu. And now just time for a reminder of tonight's main news. Donald Trump has refused to rule out military action against Syria after a suspected chemical weapons attack on a rebel-held Syrian town. The Prime Minister said it was utterly reprehensible. And the new chief executive of NHS Tayside says there is a real willingness to move forward. The Health Secretary insists the new leadership team must restore public confidence in the beleaguered board. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the main evening bulletin at 10:30. I hope you can join me then. Until then, from all of us, good evening.